Got a green light? All right. All right, Bob, we're going to start, I guess. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2015 Edina State of the Community. This evening, you're going to hear not only from your mayor, who is me, you're also going to hear from our city manager, Scott Neal. My name is Jim Hovland, and then our superintendent of schools, Rick Dressen, will be here as the last person that will address the audience for the State of the Community presentation. So the first part of the presentation will be mine, and you can see on the screen it deals with what we call innovation in all directions. You think of innovation in the context of starting something new, and I think that's what we're going to be talking about this evening and pointing out to folks what's been happening and what will be happening in various quadrants of the city. And it will be, I think, a very interesting portion of the presentation for you. So let's start over in the northwest part of town, and just across the highway from us is the Grandview District. It's outlined here in red, as you can see on your screen. It is a 3.3 acre parcel immediately west of Highway 100 off Arcadia Avenue, Eden Avenue. I think all of you that have lived in Edina for some period of time know the location and know the property. So the question has been what to do with this particular piece of property, and it's been a question that's been roiling around our community for the last 3 or 4 years, probably close to 5 years. After we moved our public works facility down to its new location in the commercial industrial district just west of the Dairy Queen headquarters. Folks have had many opportunities to weigh in. We've had 3 different community groups work on this. There was an initial group of close to 20 people that worked on it, and then a group of 53 self-selected people, 52 people, that comprised a committee that worked on a framework for what the council then adopted in terms of the guiding principles. The framework provided that we look at having a commercial partner, a private sector partner, so that we look at private and public partnership opportunities in that area. And the next version of this process, where we have our development partner in place, who is the Fraunchu Companies, or which is the Fraunchu Companies, will be coming on March 11th. And that'll be a discovery session here at City Hall, where we'll be seeing some of the different options that have been arrived at based on interaction with our community over that period of time. So we welcome all of you to come to City Hall on the 11th of March for that presentation and to look at some of these potential options where we might have both public and private uses on that particular piece of property. Incidentally, Fraunchu Companies was selected after a rigorous process. We interviewed 4 or 5 development teams. We had initially more than that apply, and Fraunchu and the group that surrounds them was selected to be our potential development partner. Over in Northeast Edina, which is where City Hall is located, there's some things going on that are important. Also 50th and France. The Veterans Memorial will be coming online this spring. It's going to be dedicated in May appropriately. We've got some film footage of some of the work that's being done in preparation for the work that will be unfolding. You saw an initial rendering of the eagle on the monument. It's a wonderful site right down here at Utley Park on 50th and Wooddale, right across from St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. This is some film footage of the sculptor that was hired to work on the eagle that is a mainstay of the Veterans Memorial that will be placed atop some of the granite pieces that we'll have in place down there. And this was a visit that our staff took over to the shop in Wisconsin where this is being built at this particular point in time. So we welcome people to come and join us in May. We're going to have a wonderful celebration there as we start to get that facility ready for public use. Also down at 50th and France, many of you have probably noticed that we've been working on parking issues down there. We've got new wayfinding systems in place to help visitors find parking. We've got streetscape improvements that are going to be noticeable, I think, for the first time this summer, and then also some other improvements that are underway. So there's an example of the street, the wayfinding equipment that's in place. It tells us which lots, no matter what direction you come into 50th and France, it'll tell you which lots have space availability, the north lot, the middle lot, or the south lot. And I think it'll help orient visitors and our own residents in a better way. Also, a lot of ramp improvements new flooring, new painting, new lighting, a lot brighter, cleaner, safer environment for everybody that is coming to visit at 50th and France. Here's an example of some of the lighting that's been put into place, and there again is an example of some of the wayfinding equipment. The city also has purchased some properties over on 49.5 Street that may come into play here as we work a little bit more on analyzing whether or not we need additional parking. So the old Edina Realty site on 49.5 Street, a couple buildings west of Walgreens, we own that site. We'll be determining what to do with that site over time. We'll probably try to make some initial decisions on that this summer after we have about 6 months of parking study to look at. And then for many of you, you know that we bought the old Hooten's Cleaners site on 49.5 Street too, down closer to US Bank. And that's under study too to figure out what we want to do with that particular property. So that's a little bit about what's happening in northeast Edina. Now when we switch to the southeast quadrant of Edina, that's where we've seen the most innovation activity, if you want to characterize it that way, with a lot of different projects that are being built or will soon be coming online or started. So you can see from the overhead site map there all the different locations in the Southdale district where there is ongoing activity, and we'll talk about those right now. So the first thing is the hospital expansion. At the front of the picture there, and when you go down the crosstown, I'm sure many of you have noticed, we've got a brand new emergency room coming online, 90,000 square feet of new emergency room capability. First floor, all emergency rooms, second floor for chronic care. So if someone comes in with diabetes, for example, and they haven't been doing a good job of monitoring the diabetes and they're in a tough condition, they can treat that as a chronic sort of problem and take them up to the second floor as opposed to taking up bed space on the first floor. This will allow them essentially double the capacity, potentially triple the capacity they have right now. And there's some footage from the crosstown as we see the emergency room under construction at the hospital. This whole medical district is an extraordinary place. I think many of us on the council feel like we're becoming kind of the medical hub for the Southwest Metro and maybe even broader than that. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along with some other expansion activities with some of the other buildings in that district. So that's what's going on at the hospital, if you've been wondering what's happening there. Directly across the street from the hospital to the west, and just to the south of the hospital parking ramp, you will notice this spring the start of construction on something called Aurora on France. And that's a building that's going to have approximately 188 units of housing in it. It's going to have a skyway connection. That skyway that you see in the photograph goes into the existing hospital ramp. The folks that will be housed over there will be independent living seniors, seniors that require assisted living, and then also people that are in transitional care. So if someone has a joint replacement operation, a new hip, a new knee, and they need to get rehabilitated before they go home, folks from the hospital will be able to take them right over to the Aurora on France building and move them into transitional care. This will all be run by the Ebenezer Society, this whole operation owned by Ignacio Bernardi and his folks that are constructing the building and also building out the entirety of the interior uses on the building, then to be managed by Ebenezer, which also manages down near 7500 York and the facility down there. So let's go on to the next. This is a little bit of footage. That was the footage of the bare lot where the Aurora on France project will go. Cornelia Place immediately to the west there. All right, let's go down to Southdale Medical Center, where if you've noticed that crane in the air on 66th Street, that is 60,000 square feet of building addition coming online at Southdale Medical Center. Should be online by the end of June. And then an increase in the size of the parking ramp, which you can see on this video. That'll be going to a 5-story capacity, which is needed over there. At present, 2,800 medical appointments a day at the Southdale Medical Center, and while they're working on the ramp, they're having to use car parkers for facilitation of appointments, and there are 13 valet car parkers. They're trying to make sure that people get to their appointments on time and are able to access their physicians. So that'll be a very interesting and helpful addition to our medical community on that medical campus. And then we're also working on improving pedestrian access on 66th, 70th, and 76th Street. I think you'll notice it more in the spring. that we've created easier access across the street so that people can get to and from the Southdale district in a non-motorized way, in a much safer way. Bigger landing areas in the middle of that boulevard so that if the folks can't make it all the way across, they can find a safe landing place in the center of the island there. More landscaping plans down the middle of the median or the boulevard, and also around the different intersections. You'll find some beautiful plantings that'll mature over time. And then also, we've got lighting coming this spring that's being manufactured in Europe right now that will just be spectacular. Big lighting like you see out at the entrance to the airport. When you go into the international airport, MSP International, you can't help but notice the tremendously impressive lightscape out there, and also the plantings that are hanging from the light fixtures. These won't be like that. They'll be more modern and equipped with LED lighting where we can change the color of the lighting over time depending on a particular event or a particular season, which I think is a nice advantage for those particular intersections. What else is going on down in that southeast district? We've got, of course, the new Barley Store. I'm sure many of you have been in the new Barley Store, which is 47,000 square feet, slightly smaller than the old Barley's, which did occupy this site right here where this building will be built. And then back here, this L-shaped building is presently under construction, and that's right on our promenade. That building, I'm not sure when it will be fully occupied, but when all three of these buildings are constructed, I think it will add 232 units of housing to our housing capability in that particular area. Some of the buildings will have also a retail capability, and that'll be about 21,000 square feet of retail capability when all three buildings are built out. The buildings being right on the promenade, I think, is a tremendous advantage for them in terms of the rental structure. I think people will want to live right on that promenade and get out there and go walking and biking and do the other kinds of activities that we see on the promenade that is getting to be such a well-used amenity in our community. These, again, are some film footage samples from that new Barley site and the construction of that first building, the L-shaped building that's going up. So behind Barley's and behind that L-shaped building, we're going to have the next phase of the promenade constructed, which basically tends to take all that water feature further north, the water feature that people love so much at Centennial Lakes. You know, in the summertime, we've got 15 to 20,000 visitors a day at Centennial Lakes, by far our most popular park. So we wanted to bring that water feature further north. You can see some ponding here behind that new apartment building, and maybe down towards the Macy's Home Store a little bit, and then the walkway around it. We haven't started any of this work yet because we wanted to make sure that that other building was well under construction before we went in here with permanent, beautiful materials and constructed this fourth phase of the promenade. We didn't want to worry about any of the materials getting cracked up by equipment that had to get out on the promenade to do some work on the L-shaped building. So that's a little bit about what you can see happening on the promenade once we get to summertime and into the fall. And I think next year it'll be clearly understandable what happened there, and you'll be able to see the extension of the Centennial Lakes theme further north, which is going to be a terrific thing for us. And then a little further north, once you get up that old Wicks furniture site, I think it's Borofsky's Furniture was there. The site has been cleared now. Lennar Homes from Chicago, their multifamily dwelling unit in Chicago, teamed up with the owners, Cohen & Companies from New York, to construct what they're calling the Onyx on that Wicks furniture site, which is another 3-acre site. And I think there'll be 242 units on this particular site. This happens to be the York Avenue view, which will have about 11,000 square feet of retail. And then there'll be 6 stories of apartment buildings there. On top of this retail is a lot of the common living areas, including an outdoor pool that will be there. If we had a photo of the Xerxes Avenue side, the side that faces Richfield, you'd see a row house effect on the first 2 floors, and then the four top floors pushed further west to create a nicer, more neighborly effect. Also, there's going to be a new pocket park on the Xerxes Avenue side, new sidewalks to enable people that live in that neighborhood to make an easier trip over to the Southdale area, easier to get through their neighborhood. They don't have any sidewalks over there now, so there'll be some dramatic pedestrian improvements over there in addition to this beautiful new building. Go ahead, let's go to the next photo. And then a little bit further south on York, in front of the Yorktown Continental building, which you can see in the background, is under construction at present. The Continental Gardens, which will be additional senior housing that'll be coming online sometime this summer. And if you drive by there, you can see them actively working on the site at the present time. This is the existing building, some video of the existing building, and some still photos. They're working on a massive window and remodeling project on the existing building. I forget what they're spending on the existing building, but it might be something approaching $60 million to rehab the existing structure. And then in front of the existing structure, facing York Avenue, will be the new Yorktown Apartments. And that'll be a great addition to the senior living community in our town. And then over in Pentagon Park, we actually forgot about one other thing in the immediate Southdale area, but they're up and operating now, and that's the Southdale One Apartments, which are, I think for many folks, noticeable on that southeast corner of the Southdale Mall site, across from Key Cadillac, across from the Westin. There's 3 buildings there, a little over 200 units there total. There's a 10-story building, a 5-story building, and a 3-story building. And those units over there are now about 60% rented, even though they just finished the 10-story building. So folks over there seem real pleased with the pace of renting, and they're renting to millennials, they're renting to boomers, and they're also renting to a few families. So there's a wide range of folks that are going in there. Over at Pentagon Park, which is basically off Highway 177th Street, you can see that the site on the south side of 77th has been cleared now. There was a 6-story building there before, and then a couple of 1-story buildings that were on a spoke and hub system with the main building. Those have all been cleared now. The owner, Hillcrest Development, is preparing that for some new tenants. We don't know what they're going to be doing there yet, but it's a wonderful site, and they thought it would be better for prospective tenants to be able to see it vacant without a building there before. They thought it would help them attract more potential renters, and I think they're thinking about Class A office space there. You can see here that's the old building that was demolished. Apparently quite a well-done building in terms of its foundation. There's a lot of peat there, and they'd use a lot of concrete to make sure that building didn't move around. So it was quite a demolition project. And then to the north of 77th, bordering Fred Richards, is more of the Pentagon Park project. It totals 42 acres. And we've done the urban environmental impact assessment on it. It's ready to be developed. It'll be developed in phases, probably over the next 10 years. We'll deal with each phase of the development as it comes online or potentially online to decide if we think it's an appropriate use for that particular part of the site. We haven't seen anything yet from the owners, but expect that in the next year we'll see some real activity on those sites, both south and north of 77th Street, plus some tremendous improvements on 77th Street itself in terms of how it's landscaped, how the traffic flows. It'll be a much more neighborly sort of street when that all gets done. So that's what's happening down at Pentagon Park. And then in Southwest Edina, which is our last quadrant, where we're going to talk a little bit about innovation, there's a couple of things going on there. I'm sure many of you have kids that are in sports programs. We've got the new Braemar Field, which is our new sports dome, which will be up, I think, basically all winter long until April, and we'll take the dome down and use it as a field in the summertime. Next to it, that shed roof is under construction, was what they call now the backyard, which is an outdoor hockey rink. It's just a beautiful rink, and I think people are really loving it, and having that opportunity to skate outside is a wonderful thing. And then here's some footage from inside the sports dome. It's being used all day long, all night long. We expect no issues with regard to operating it. It should carry itself from an operational standpoint. The total community investment here between the Braemar Field, the dome, and the outdoor rink is somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $16 million. So quite a community commitment, but it's something that people in our community have wanted for at least the last decade. And it was nice to be part of the council and be able to put this thing together for the community. So that's what's happening there at Braemar Field. And then over at the golf course, many of you know that There's some remodeling going on at the clubhouse now. We're going to have a new vendor in there that's going to be taking care of food operations, the Tin Fish that operated down at Lake Calhoun. And then we're also going to see some plans coming forth from the task force that's working on some ideas on what we can do over at the Braemar Golf Course to improve activity levels over there and get more golfers on the site. Questions about whether to maintain it as a 27-hole course or shrink it down to 18 like it used to be. Those are a couple of the key questions. We're on the agenda for tomorrow night. We have the issue of the driving range renovation and also the par 3 renovation. And that'll be something the council will be discussing tomorrow night, but we have a plan in place for that that's been preliminarily approved, and now we need to look at the bidding situation there. So that'll be the last, I think, enterprise in the city that needs to be touched. We'll need to do some work at the pool downstream, but this is the last big project that we need to address from a enterprise standpoint to make it more effective and efficient in delivering services to our residents. And try to keep the level of subsidy down to a reasonable level, and actually try to get the golf course to operate itself at or near a profit. And then operation, or from a capital standpoint, we'll work on that as we go through this whole process. So there is quickly some of the renovation that's taking place in the clubhouse, but you can see that all over town, in every quadrant of our town, whether it's northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest, there's something going on from an innovative standpoint in our community that all of you love to call home. So I'm going to bring up now Scott Neal, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the data that we see that we think is important to people. And then Rick Dressen, our superintendent, is going to come up immediately when Scott's done. So thank you very much. And we'll have question and answers at the end. I want to thank Councilmember Bob Stewart for coming to the meeting this evening. It was good of him to attend. So, Manager Neal, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only have 2 things to talk about tonight. Numbers and accountability, and we'll start with numbers. First number is 4. 4, we are 4th in terms of the size of tax base for any city in the state of Minnesota. There are only 3 cities that have a larger tax base than Edina: Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Bloomington. Our tax base is larger than every other city except for those 3 in the state. Our tax base for 2015 is just over $10 billion, $10.4 billion. That gets us back to and over, actually, what we were in 2008, which was our previous high water mark in terms of tax base in Edina's history. It represents a 6% growth over last year, and it caps 3 consecutive years of growth from our property tax base, which is impressive compared to other cities in the state. Second number is 44. 44 represents the number of residential redevelopment homes that came onto our tax rolls in 2014. We issued 134 demolition permits, residential demolition permits in 2014, but the number of homes that actually were built on a lot where another home used to be previously is 44. But those 44 are notable. The average estimated market value of those 44 homes was $332,000 in the beginning, in the before condition. In the after condition, it's just over $1 million, so $1,036,000 per piece. So when you multiply the net effect, the net, not the gross, but the net effect of those 44 homes to our tax base, it's an additional $30 million to our tax base. If you look at that same metric over this time period from 2008 to today, we've had 286 homes that have done the same thing. That's added $184 million of new tax base for the city of Edina, and that $184 million covers $665,000 a year in just city property taxes alone. That doesn't count the property taxes that are created for the county or for the school district. So it's a notable amount of money. The next number is 4,908. 4,908 is the number of calls for service that our fire department received in 2014. 3,826 of those calls were for EMS, so about 70% of the calls received for service in our 911 center that dispatched the fire department really dispatched our ambulance service. The ambulance service is the major component now of our fire department and has been for about a decade. If you add the number of calls from our police department, which is about 48,000, so about 10 times that number were calls for service from our police department, and then you add the number of calls for service from the Richfield Police, Richfield Fire, Golden Valley Police, and Golden Valley Fire, it's 111, because we dispatch for those entities out of our 911 center, which is just upstairs. It's 111,000 calls for service that were handled from our 911 center upstairs. It's a tremendous volume of work. We had reciprocal contract. We had outsourced contracts for Golden Valley and Richfield. Golden Valley ended that relationship this year. We continued to dispatch for Richfield for, I believe, a number of years ahead. 53,300. 53,300 is Edina's projected 2040 population according to the Metropolitan Council. The Metropolitan Council in 2014 did an initiative called Thrive MSP. And in their initiative, they looked at all the different cities that are part of the 7-county metro area and tried to make some kind of projection based on zoning, based on available land, based on size of city. And this was our number for between now and 2040. This number also is supposed to support 56,000 full-time jobs in the city. So Edina will always be a place that is likely to always be a place with more jobs than people. $157,344,438 is the amount of planned capital spending in our city's 5-year capital improvement plan that started January 1 of 2015. That includes all of our street projects, utility projects, park projects, building projects, liquor stores, fire stations. Every capital dollar we intend to spend in the next 5 years is included in that number. It's a tremendous investment into a community, but we think it's important and it's well planned as we go forward. And the final number is 2,368,000,000 gallons, and that is the amount of water in 2014 that we pumped out of the earth to treat and then distribute in the community. 2.3 billion is actually low. It's the lowest amount of water that we've pumped out of the earth since 1998. That's good from a conservation standpoint, but if you're in the water selling business like we are, it is not so good sometimes. So one of the things that we are going to do with our city council tomorrow night prior to the meeting is we're going to have a presentation for them called State of the Utilities, where we talk a little bit about the capital improvements that we need to do in our utility system and the impact on rates that not only that construction will have, but also the consumption that we see, consumption patterns that we see in the community. Accountability. One of the most important things that we do in this kind of setting, whether you've taken the time to come here tonight, which we appreciate, or whether you're watching this online sometime in the future, or whether you're watching it at home live, is the aspect of accountability. When we say that we're going to do something as a council group or as a city government, we want to show you that we're serious and we want to show you that we did it. Or if we didn't do it, we want to tell you why. So that's something that I think is very important as the chief staff person for the city, and I'm happy to tell you about it. One of the things that we did as a city council group in 2013, the council met in a strategic planning retreat, and they formed 6 strategic priorities, and I'm going to go through each one of those and tell you what we did. So here are the 6 strategic priorities for 2014-15. Infrastructure, commercial and mixed-use development, workforce, that's primarily the city's workforce, communication and engagement, community vision, and airport noise. So infrastructure. Infrastructure for the council meant that we want to preserve and expand infrastructure to maintain its reliability and its quality, and with an emphasis on long-term financing that balances prudence and community expectations. So in this video, you're going to see images of ice arenas and liquor stores and park planning and the Xerxes Avenue Bridge. We looked at a number of France Avenue corridor projects that the mayor talked to you about earlier, the Braemar Field and Backyard project, a large project at Pamela Park to implement a new artificial turf field, We made massive projects, massive improvements, I believe, in our parking structures at 50th and France, and of course, the liquor store project. Those are all examples of things that the council thought was important, and those are infrastructure reports. Next is commercial and mixed-use development. There's a couple of images here of a small mixed-use development that we see at 5100 and 5108 Edina Industrial Boulevard. And I think and that's the image of the Hootens project. We talked a little bit about the Hootens, but the other two are pretty typical commercial redevelopment projects that we're starting to see more of in the city. We think that the commercial and renewal of commercial and residential areas is essential to the city's overall health in the community. And 50th and France, and actually the Grandview District are the two areas that we look at when we look at focused redevelopment in the city. And we also talked a little bit about Pentagon Park. And also one that we haven't mentioned yet is Wooddale Valley View. The Wooddale Valley View commercial node that's just not too far from here was really the subject of a community task force. Staff participated, planning commissioners participated. They've gone through a process where they've formed a new plan for how that area should be redeveloped in the future that's working its way now through our planning commission and then back to our city council. Workforce, we added some significant new folks to our management team this past year. On the top row, Tom Schmitz is our new fire chief, Dave Nelson is our new police chief, Eric Ragaman is our new finance director, and Chad Milner is our new director of engineering. On the bottom row, we have 3 additions this year and 1 retirement. So the additions were MJ Lehman. She's a project coordinator, but she works in our areas for neighborhood associations. Dave Fisher is our new building official, and Joe Abood is our new golf course manager. He's the director of golf at Braemar. And the retirement was Diesel. Diesel was a K-9 officer in our police department for 8 years. He retired in December, and he passed shortly after that. So that was quite a loss for our department there. Communications and engagement. Communications and engagement for the city and for the council in terms of their preferences are to consistently seek the input of a broad range of stakeholders in a meaningful and interactive way, utilizing multiple platforms. When we think of what that means for us in turning that kind of direction into actual work in the community, these are some examples. Aviation Noise with its quarterly development tracker, our Grandview District Survey, which we talked a little bit about earlier, and what we think is coming in the Grandview area, and then how we engage neighborhoods now with our new neighborhood associations. And these are just a few of those neighborhoods that are officially organized now. We use a tool called Speak Up Edina as an online platform. We have a monthly topic in which we reach out to folks who live in the community and some who don't, to coalesce around a subject. We discuss it online. We make a presentation about those findings back to our council in the succeeding month, and we keep doing this on a cycle. We also launched our first mobile app this year called Edina to Go. A few things that you can do. You can give the city a call, you can look at our blogs, you can look at city code, you can visit our website, but maybe most importantly, you can initiate a service request on our Edina to Go mobile app. Community vision. The council's direction to staff was that a clear vision of a desired future will help focus the city's daily efforts and sustain a high quality of life. The pretty important thing is to have a clear vision so that we know where we're going. And that's important, very important for us who are in the business of running a city on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that we did this year to further this council goal was to engage a company called Future IQ. And Future IQs has been going through the process of engaging the community and really trying to seek from the community what they believe their future is in Edina. What is the future of the community? And how does it lay out in the next planning period? This process started about the middle of last year. It's engaged hundreds of people in person. We had 110 people actually that joined us for a think tank that was a Tuesday and Thursday night, 4 hours apiece, so 8 hours total over 1 week. And it was a substantial engagement. We've also had 591 people that have completed the Vision Edina survey, and 400 people who came to subsequent meetings, 35 different community meetings. That process is also kind of making its way to a completion this year. We can still accept feedback on the Vision Edina website, which is part of our website. And we're also going to have a live feedback opportunity for our council that's going to occur Tuesday, April 14th from 5 to 7 p.m. right here in the council chambers. Aviation noise. This issue really came to us pretty hard, actually, in 2013. And it came to us under the guise of something called RNAV. And RNAV was an attempt by the FAA through the Metropolitan Airports Commission to change the way in which planes left or departed from MSP Airport. Right now, when planes depart off of the 30 right and 30 left runways, which are the ones that are kind of directed at us, they kind of fan out in a somewhat indiscriminate way, in an organized way, I will say, but in a broad fan. What the FAA is proposing to do is to look at in these two pictures, the image on the left, is to reduce the variability of that fan and really to be very strict about the vector of the planes that are departing. This makes a big difference because if you live under one of those two vectors, those two dark blue lines, you're going to hear a lot more airport noise than you did before. And many people, in fact, in this kind of case, many people do benefit. They're going to hear less airport noise than they did before. But the people that receive more are going to receive a lot more. So we've been resisting this. We've been working with our friends in other cities. We've been working with the Metropolitan Airports Commission to see what is it that we can do to delay this. We were successful in 2013 in getting this imposition of RNAV delayed. We're continuing to work not only with the Metropolitan Airport Commission, but also our federally elected officials, and we're going to be doing that actually next week. And when we attend some meetings in Washington, D.C., to see if we can continue to resist the implementation of RNAV for departing aircraft. One of the other things that we did this year that was successful was we were able to convince the Metropolitan Airports Commission to do an aviation noise study, to put a baseline study in place for what kind of noise we already receive. That's an image on the bottom right of what an actual airport noise or aviation noise monitoring device called an RMT looks like. It looks like a suitcase with a stick sticking out of it, but it's really quite a sophisticated piece of equipment. So that's the end of my update in terms of who we are. This is who we are. This is how you get a hold of us, both from email, online connections, and of course our phone connections. We've had a pretty successful year, 2014. We're already off to a very busy 2015. I'm sure our state of the city a year from now is going to be just as exciting as this one. So now it's my pleasure to turn over this microphone and this clicker to my friend and colleague, Dr. Rick Dressen. Dr. Dressen.
Well, it's an honor to be here tonight. I'm going to just again thank the mayor and Scotty and everybody in the community for the support they continue to provide our young people. All 8,401 students that are getting a great education because of the commitment this community has to learning and to the future. I think we're queuing up I'm ready to go? Oh, okay, we're ready to go. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about these students that are in our schools today and the students who will be coming to our schools in the future. What we are about as a community is about learning and about community building. It's driven by our mission statement, and this mission statement has been with the school district since 1989 officially, but I think it's always been part of our learning community. We've been a school district community for over 155 years, and I think these 47 words have always been a part of it. It's simply boiled down to 3 words: all of us in the community working for all learners. And that's really what we continue to strive to do as a school district. When we take a look at our last year, 2013-14, I want to talk a little bit about that and talk about some of those numbers. Again, last year we were at 8,378 students. We've grown a little bit. You can see again in these numbers, about 15% of those students who attend our schools attend through open enrollment. When we do our projections, we have about 15 to 16% of our students who live in Edina do not attend our school district. They either attend other non-public schools, other public schools, or home schools. So what we do is through policy, the board does allow about 15% of our students in, and that really does max out the capacity we have in our schools. So we really work hard at serving as many students as we can for what's good for them, what's good for their families, and it really is that partnership piece. When we look at achievement, Edina continues to be highly recognized for the accomplishments our students have, and this is a compliment to the students, it's a compliment to the parents, but it's also a compliment to the community. And yet we also have to accept that not all of our students are successful, and we do have that achievement gap and that access and opportunity gap that we're working hard to close. And so we have a variety of programs both within the school district and the community that find ways to support these learners to be successful, starting at those very early years and right on through the high school experience. One of the big things that we do and how we really do is we try to look at return on investment on our resources. And when you think of education, what we want to do is make sure that learning is the constant and that we continue to use the resources we have of time, talent, funds, and space and make sure that we use those to the maximum. So when we look at time, it isn't just the time that we put in the classroom, but we also want to highlight some of those other times, like that we have over 2,000 students give back to the community, where they continue to serve the community. They recognize that civic responsibility, and the students of all ages finding ways to give back to the community. When we look at time, we look at the number of partnerships we have where volunteers are coming in on a regular basis to support learning, to support mentorships, different ways that we can make sure our students are successful. When we look at talent, it's not only a very talented teaching force that we have, where over 50% of our teachers have a master's degree or plus. We also have teachers advancing their skills in a variety of ways, but we have over 1,000 community members that come into our schools on an annual basis, sharing their talents, be it in presentation or being in a variety of ways. Plus we have volunteers coming into the classroom, again, just to support students. So it really is this team effort that creates a success story for our school district. Funding, while we are very dependent on our state, 70% of our funds come from state funds, we also have a very good fortune of having our community support us with local levy, and that too helps grow our skills and our talents, because we are very dependent on funding to make sure we have great things happen. A variety of other sources that fall under that funding umbrella includes our buses and our food service program. Space is another key piece, and we have schools that are very well used. Over 142 organizations beyond the school day get into our schools, and they're busy right now finding ways to make sure that we access these buildings, and we want to wear these buildings out. Our buildings are not the newest buildings in Minnesota. In fact, if you take a look at the top 25 school districts within the state, we're the 5th oldest set of buildings. That doesn't mean we're not in good shape. It just means that we haven't built a building for a while. What we've done, though, is on an every 10-year basis, we continue to upgrade these facilities to make sure they're current. And the last facility improvements were back in 2003. So we make sure these facilities are well used and that the facilities line well with what the learning has to happen in the classroom. But now as we look to the future, we look at 2015 and beyond, we've always been about strategic planning. We have a vision that we have put in place back in 2012. This vision says that we as a school district recognize that we're nationally recognized for great things we're doing, but we also want to be internationally recognized. So starting later this spring, we're going to start identifying international schools that we can benchmark against. Right now, nationally, we benchmark against 7 district schools. They include New Trier outside of Chicago, Palo Alto outside of San Francisco, Manhattan Beach outside of Los Angeles, Highland Park outside of Dallas, Eanes outside of Austin, and Westside outside of Omaha. All of 7 of these school districts benchmark well. We look at programming, we look at ways we can improve, we look at our comparisons as far as how our students perform. Again, we try to grow our network beyond just Minnesota, and we want to say how are our students performing, because we know that's the world our students are going to be living in and working in, but we also know it's going to have an international presence. So as we go forward, we take that on. We take that on with the same expectations that it's going to be about a lot of opportunities. It's going to be about that total learning experience around the arts, the academics, and the extracurriculars, so the students can be successful not only in college and in career, but in life. And what we're going to continue to do is take that focus around this area of excellence. That Edina is going to stay strong with that mission statement. It's about partnerships. It's about giving students choice. It's about giving students learning leadership opportunities. It's about working together. It's about high rigor. It's about community support. All those have been excellence and been well marked in our school district. What we're doing is looking at ways we can advance the excellence, and we're doing that with strategic initiatives. That excellence and advancement is really looking at competencies. As we go forward, we know it's more than just a degree or more than just learning, that we need to make sure our young people throughout the system are gaining their educational competencies. And as we look at the skills of the 21st century, look at what students need going forward in the 21st century, it really is about being competent in your communication skills and having a presence of a global perspective and making sure there's a wellness component to that world. So it isn't just FIED, it's really taking a look at the full picture, that we recognize a civic responsibility that needs to be part of these students, problem solving. And so all these things have to be incorporated into our learning because we want our students to walk out the door having these educational competencies, that they're ready to be an independent learner, ready for the challenges of the world and the opportunities the world has before them. As we looked at our strategic planning, we are really literally rebuilding all of our learning opportunities from birth through age 85 plus. 3 years ago, we embarked on a study looking at our secondary schools, grades 6 through 12. Last year, or 2 years ago, we then moved into a birth through grade 5, and this year we're now looking at a community education study. And so we're looking at ages post-high school right on through age 85 plus. What we really want to do is make sure all of our programming aligns with this new vision. So as we did this, we are looking at growing our preschool programming. Not that we're going to take that over, but we really want to complement the preschool programmings that are currently in our community to make sure we have opportunities for all learners ages 3 and 4 to get that preschool experience so that they're really ready for kindergarten. The elementary experience will continue to be a strong neighborhood-based elementary school, but again, more choices, more opportunities, looking at the power of some of the pre-engineering opportunities that we can even bring into the elementary level. Our middle school programming is a move from a 6-9 to a 6-8 true middle school. It's going to be much more student-centered, much more opportunities for exploration and really helping those students define their personalized spark and their interest to grow as they prepare for that next step, which is that high school experience. And that's going to move to a 9-12 high school experience. We want the students to have the full 9-12 experience. We know that right now our 9th graders may be limited in some of the options and opportunities we want to provide them in our current model, and having that 9th grade through 12th grade experience is one that will be successful, get them ready right on through so that when they leave at that 12th grade experience, they're ready for what lays ahead of them. We're going to roll this a very phased process. So a lot of work that we're doing right now, starting in 2012, has been moving forward in the areas of technology, where we're moving forward with our one-to-one initiative that's in grades 6 through 12, but we also are bringing in some one-to-one initiatives in our elementary years, that we've done some things around funding and changing our funding sources, working closely with the Edina Ed Fund to bring on new initiatives. But going forward, one of our big calls will be in the spring of this spring on May 5th, when we're seeking support from the community for upgrading our facilities. But again, each one of these steps is going to be piloted. It's going to continue to grow in what we do well and just advance those excellence to meet that vision that we have before us. Again, looking at learning being the constant, how do we get the return on the investment on our resources? So when we look at time, we are looking at time differently. We're seeing time has an opportunity that we don't need to have a school year start of a post-Labor Day and end that soon after Memorial Day, that we can make a continuum of learning, that we can have the learning day look differently. And we're seeing that at high school where the students on a Wednesday pause in the middle of the day where they can have their study period, but also go in and seek teachers' help to get any problem solving done, changing how we do that. We know we need to look at time differently for our teachers because the amount of preparation time our teachers now take to make sure they provide quality learning and that learning experience we want our students to have, it takes more class time, more preparation on part of our teachers. So we're looking at our school day, we're looking at our school year, and we're looking at the power of technology and how that can also shift how we use time. When we look at talent, we literally are looking at our teaching staff and saying, and our educators, including the superintendent, saying we need to retool our talents. And so we are all going back to school and making sure that we have the talents that will drive those educational competencies. So we're embarking this summer on a very active 3-year plan of making sure that all of our staff are ready for the skills that have the skills they need to be successful in delivering the instruction and the opportunities for our young people. We look at funding. Again, we're doing some strategic work around our funding and building a budget that really takes the budget and places it in the areas that we need to make a strategic difference. And so we're watching very closely what happens in the legislative session this year, because this year is the funding year for K-12 education throughout the state of Minnesota. And we are really making sure that we have the funds necessary to be successful in the vision that we bring forward. And then when we look at space, we continue to put a high priority on security. That's always been a big priority in this community, and we are very fortunate to partner with our police department to make sure that it isn't just the facilities, but it's also program, it's also how we partner with law enforcement. The second is infrastructure, making sure that our buildings remain strong, that the roofs are in good shape, and that we're taking care of our heating and cooling systems, that the parking lots are passable, because we have aging buildings, so we have to make sure we keep up the infrastructure. And on an annual basis, we're taking about $10 million a year to go through all of our facilities to update that. But then also the learning spaces. And we know that we want to make sure the learning spaces align the best way for our students to do their learning. So one of the big things we're bringing forward, and the board approved in January of 2015, was a call for a vote on May 5th. This is taking a look at how we transform the spaces to make sure the spaces really align of how learning needs to occur to provide our quality educators with the quality space needed. And it's something we've done on an annual or every 10-year basis. 1992 we did an upgrade, 2003 we did an upgrade, and again we're calling for a request of this type of support from our community in 2015. When we take a look at this, it's a $124.9 million request. You can see the money breaks out with security, it breaks out with infrastructure, and it also breaks out with general learning spaces. This would be a 20-year or 21-year bond that would be spread out over that period, and we know this would take us well into the 2020s, possibly 2030, before we need to come back and upgrade. So we really need to do some serious planning on how we use this space. When we look at security, again, it's ensuring a secure entrance, but also providing some additional security enhancements that we can make sure our facilities are secure and they complement the programming we're doing and complement support we get from the police department. When we look at infrastructure, again, it's not only the envelope of the building, but it's also taking a look at our athletic spaces, it's taking a look at our outdoor learning spaces, it's taking a look at our bus transportation facility. That's a challenge for us, that we really do need to upgrade our transportation building. When we take a look at learning spaces, again, what we're doing is touching all 10 sites. And this is pretty exciting because we don't know of another school district at a national level that's taking and improving and making sure every school site is going to see the improvements. Our preschool programming, our elementary schools, our middle schools, and our high school. And when we talk about learning spaces and how things are changing, what we really are looking at is a variety of different types of learning spaces. It's no longer one teacher, one classroom. It really is this opportunity to break out. It's the different types of learning spaces, much the way we find our work environment, and we're seeing students already using that. And so we're going to have small group spaces, larger group spaces. We're seeing this whole pre-engineering or the maker spaces, or spaces that allow students to explore in different ways, large gathering spaces. Again, all of these things are complemented through previous referendums we've had, but again, it's our opportunity to improve that, the impact on housing, or on property owners, I should say. You can see there on the screen. Again, it's lower than what we actually asked for that average homeowner in 2003. Again, it's a major investment, and we recognize this, and we'll be sharing more information throughout March, April, and prior to the vote to make sure people understand and make an informed vote when they do come to the ballot box on May 5th. So the timing on this, again, this community dialogues, the absentee votes actually start March 20th. Then on May 5th, we have the election. None of the design work and school construction, and this is just the way school construction works, it's all conceptual, and none of the design work actually occurs until the referendum is successful, and if it's not, then the board would step back and plan next steps. But the design work would start in the summer and fall of 2015. We'd make some major improvements in the winter, and then spring 2016 and 17 would be a busy time. We'd see major construction completed in the fall of 2017. We'll be providing district mailings throughout the process, having a variety of public meetings to go much deeper into that. The district website has a lot of information that would help share more information of how we can continue to transform spaces to advance the excellence that's occurring today and into the future for Edina Public Schools. That kind of paints the picture of where we are today. where we're looking to go tomorrow and well into the future. So I'm going to ask Jim and Scott to come up, and we can respond to questions that you might have for us as we continue to provide a bigger picture on the state of the community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Dubbs. Thank you for hosting this tonight. Would you discuss the status of the open enrollment preferential treatment for Edina students that don't live in the district?
Yep. So the school district has a policy around open enrollment or non-resident enrollment, follows the state statute, and we are right now going back to explore that. We've had a request by community members of the city of Edina have us take a look at that. So we are going to revisit that. It goes actually for the first time to policy to start discussing that. If there would be any modifications in that policy, it would be for the fall of 2016 since our placement process already occurred. But we are looking at the options and the possibilities. As a school district, we make a major commitment to try to welcome as many open enrollment students in while still meeting that bubble area of about 15 to 16% in and out. But we do even dedicate an administrator who works very closely with the families to try to meet the needs of those families who are beyond our borders and coming into our through open enrollment. But we are looking at it.
Thanks for the, it's the same question. I just want to elaborate a little bit more. And thanks everyone actually for the great things happening in the community. And I feel like this topic, the open enrollment thing for the Edina resident, it fit into this theme very well. So I just want to actually include all of you folks. That is, I talked to quite some people on this, basically give priority to Edina resident. And both Edina resident and also non-Edina resident, it seems like people feel like everyone I talk to, they feel like that's a very meaningful thing. And not to mention, currently, the district do have a priority list, right? And so seems like that's a relatively easy thing to install or to be adopted. But we just don't know if there's any concerns or hesitations for this type of kind of practice. Personally, I live in the northwest corner, right outside the boundary of Edina district. I mean, it's actually it's the end of my block, so it's kind of quite close. And talk about personal experience. I mentioned that at the board meeting. Sure. My son is in 10th grade, and we try to apply to Edina starting 6th grade through like 9th. And none of the year we get accepted. And it just feel like this open enrollment doesn't work in our case very well. So I would like to get input from all of the three, kind of all of you, to say, do you feel like this is a meaningful thing to do, to give the Edina resident, kind of add them to the priority list? So that's this. If there's any concerns, I mean, are you able to elaborate a little? Either if you support this initiative or if you have any concerns. And if you do support this, kind of to add Edina resident to the priority list, what kind of things you can do to help that happen, basically? So, so this question is to all of three of you. Certainly, primarily, is the superintendent.
Sure. I bet you I get to take the first swing at this. So this is very much driven by state statute, and state statute is governed very closely then by the Minnesota Department of Education on the interpretation of that statute. So our office has worked very closely going back to into the 1990s, because this has been a challenge for our school district community and the city of Edina. And again, it's, I think there's over 3,600 properties that are in the city of Edina, not in the Edina School District. And so we've been working closely with our legal counsel and taking a look at options. Again, we are committed to making sure we serve our Edina School District, but also want to honor that state statute. So the board has probably about every 5 years taken a look at the policy and say, what can we do to make adjustments? And we've studied that. We've worked closely with, for example, the Hopkins School District, because there was, a possibility of could we do something just through the boundary change process, and that was definitely explored and not successful. But we're going to continue to work with our council and work with the Department of Education and interpret the statute as the department requires us to do, and look at options to see how we can serve as many students as possible.
In my role as city manager, I work with all 3 districts. So I work with Dr. Dressen in the Edina School District the most because they comprise most of our city. But I meet a couple of times a year with the Hopkins superintendent, and also welcome the new Richfield superintendent about the middle of the summer, I believe, when Dr. Anowski came. So we have relationships with all 3 districts. I can understand why you and others want to be in the Edina district, because we know how important that qualifier is to the value of real estate in the city, and how important it is to our city as a whole to have great public schools. We see it everywhere. It's important to us as a city government. But in terms of commenting on how that happens or if it can happen, it's hard for me to do because I don't understand all of the issues at play. And so I have a good policy of not commenting on things that I don't fully understand. And so I'll pass this mic over to the mayor.
Made it sound like I was fearless about commenting about things I don't know a thing about.
Only speaking for myself.
Yeah. So, I think you've had dreams for your son. You dreamt that you would like to have him go to Edina schools. It hasn't worked out. I think all of us that are involved in public service work have dreams for our community in addition to those dreams you have for your family. So I think a common dream that all of us have is that all kids that live in Edina could go to school in Edina. And it seems like such a simple concept, but it's so complicated because of you've got 100-year-old boundary line, you've got other communities with economic interests, you've got this prioritization issue that in many ways is a legal issue more than anything else that we don't feel comfortable commenting on. It's a jurisdictional issue for the school district and something that we haven't been involved in. But to the general notion that is there a dream out there that all of us have, I would say, yeah, a common dream that all kids that live in Edina should be able to eventually go to school in Edina. That's a wonderful dream to have. How to make it become reality is a little bit more difficult. So let's just, we'll keep working at it. And you can tell from what the superintendent said that they're now going to have their people that they rely on from a legal standpoint take a look at this issue and see if there's some moderating that they can do with the historic position that they've had to try to give Edina families that live in the Northwest Quadrant like you do some more flexibility and make sure that Edina kids have some sort of prioritization. So, but even that, as simple as it sounds from a conceptual standpoint, I'm sure is very complicated from a legal standpoint. So it's difficult.
Just to follow on. Next year, if it doesn't come through, would you consider inviting the other 2 superintendents? Because all for all isn't really all for all. It's all for some. So maybe we should have them come too.
Other questions? One of you want to wrap it up?
No, I just want to thank people in the audience tonight, and thank the community of Edina for the great support they provide all young people, and I do appreciate the partnership work that we have, not only with the city, but with the various civic organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, our faith community. It's a great team effort, and it's an honor to be up here with Jim and Scott. They do great work and are great colleagues, so I appreciate it. We call it the state of the community for a reason,
because we want folks to know what's happening in all aspects of this operation that comprises your local government, whether it's the school district or the city. The city administrator and all the work that he's doing is doing a wonderful work, and our staff, we're so appreciative of the things they do. It's a pleasure to stand up here with these other two gentlemen once a year and give the state of the community, because it's very strong and very good, and we can only make it better.